let's go to Javi. World champs, shout out to the Padres. We couldn't do it without you.
Well, just think about this. I mean, the Padres have to own this. They have to wear this in their heart. This is not going away because they're ignoring the conversation. They led the Dodgers 2-1. They were at Petco Park with a chance to win, and they did not. And then they wound up losing the last game in the series, too. And they went 24 innings without scoring a run. The star-studded, high-priced batting order did not score a run for 24 straight innings against Dodger pitching. So Padres have to own it. We're not going to ignore it. You need to critique and analyze what happened, but you need to salute the Dodgers. I mean, this was an accomplishment. Javi, all the adversity the Dodgers came through, that to me is the most stunning thing, that they were able to come through everything and to focus and be all in at the most important time of the year. That to me is the thing that speaks volumes of their leadership and their character. All the negatives that happened, there are a lot of negatives happened to them, and they're raising the trophy at Yankee Stadium.
How many world championships has the city of Los Angeles won? I mean, if you add them all up across pro and college sports, it's got to be like, I don't know, 40 or 50 trophies, right?
Well, you got obviously the Lakers, and then you got the Dodgers. You got some odd occasion USC. UCLA has never done it in football, but they did it in basketball. Yeah. So the Kings obviously have done it in the NHL Stanley Cup. I wouldn't say 40 to 50.
Maybe that's, I was
There
exaggerating.
have been a lot of parades.
But, you're right. You got to tip a hat to the Dodgers. They play great. I'm still just blown away how they magically figured it all out. But even when they were struggling, they were still always in first place.
Well, that first place lead went from 10 games down to 2, and I thought they were going to topple over. John, when I saw they were going to a bullpen day against the Padres, a bullpen day, which is normally fatal, and they won the bullpen game against the Padres, and they came back and then they won the fifth and final game.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
That was game 4. Padres up 2-1, Dodgers elimination game at Petco, and they roll out a bullpen game. And I remember as a Padre fan thinking, I think this is going to work out well for the Padres, and sure as hell it didn't.
Yeah, 8 guys. 8 guys came out and beat the Padres out of the pen. Yeah. A couple other times I tried, it didn't quite work out very well. Javi, thank you for joining us on Fans Forum. Next one.
Okay, let's go here to Callan. He goes, welcome back, Lee. Hope all is well. Thanks for the film choices last week. What are you keeping your eyes on for college football or college basketball season, especially locally in town?
Well, I think obviously San Diego State, but this is a bit of a rebuild job because there's a lot of missing pieces, and it's going to be a very young basketball team with contributors. But Brian Dutcher's record is Brian Dutcher's record, and that's pretty doggone good. And they get great athletes who buy the system and they play defense. So I think it's going to be fun to watch and see how this grows. However, it's a good conference. Boise State may be a football program that's really good, but Boise State basketball is pretty doggone good. And Vegas has gotten really good again. They've recycled. And you got Colorado State. I mean, there are 4 or 5 teams that I think are really good in this conference. And the Aztecs, with a young roster, are going to have to face those guys once we get into the month of December. But I think we'll get a gauge 2 weeks from now. They get Gonzaga. That's not going to be an easy basketball game. That game's going to be here, though, so that's going to be fun watching.
It's going to be great. I mean, I love college basketball season. But a couple of other interesting storylines here locally is Hudson is the coach now at USD,
right, with
Lavin. So that's our old guy. He's there and
good recruiter.
Great. He recruited Kawhi Leonard. Right. So that's a great get for the Toreros. And speaking for myself, I'm a UCSD alum, and now they've been D1, and I think this is the first year
they're eligible.
Yes,
for March Madness,
and they're eligible even for their own Big West tournament. And so there was one year where they were at the top or near the top, but they were ineligible for the Big West tournament.
Yeah, they had I think a 23-24 win season.
Yeah,
but they were ineligible. This year, loaded 3-point shooters. Transferred in 2 bigs, including one from St. Mary's. That's going to be fun watching.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what that's going to be about. So I'm going to definitely go to some of those games. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed the baseball and football movie.
We had a good time arguing before we actually did it as to how do you rank the movies, and because it's my podcast, I ranked them the way I viewed them. But I'd be interested to see what other people have got to say. Next topic.
Okay, let's go to Roy. Hacksaw, I've been saying from the beginning, the Dodgers lineup was World Series worthy. We beat the 3 best teams to the World Series with suspect starting pitching.
but strong bullpen that got healthy and got hot. And I'll tell you, the trade acquisitions, they probably might not have been playing had it not been for Michael Kopech and Tommy Edman.
Yes.
Those trade deadline deals on August 1st that brought that guy from St. Louis and brought that pitcher from the White Sox, they were huge difference makers. And I mean, think about this. The Dodgers won the ring with Ohtani going 3 for 20. 3 for 20. And they won the ring with a crippled Freddie Freeman at first base hitting all those home runs. So, I mean, it was a consummate team victory. And I just so impressed with the job that Dave Roberts did. And obviously all these guys, and there's an intangible that you can never configure on your roster. The intangible is leadership. Geez, and you look at the leadership they get, whether it's a catalyst of Ohtani or the leadership of Freeman or the quiet leadership of Mookie Betts. I mean, there's something unique about those guys.
Mookie Betts is a quality character dude.
Yeah.
I mean, the Dodgers were lucky to get him. And I remember someone referring back to the trade because they got Mookie, and I think it was who was that lefty pitcher that had a big contract, and he came over. He used to be with the Rays, then the Red Sox, and then he was finished his career with the Dodgers. It was like a salary dump for the Red Sox with Mookie, and then I think the Dodgers gave up Alex Verdugo and a couple of other guys. But Mookie is fantastic. I mean, he's just a great guy. You got to love that guy.
3-position player who got hurt.
Yeah, and then think about Tommy Edman as that multi-position player. It's incredible the flexibility they have. But remember early in the season, it's one thing to talk about how the pitching staff was a shambles, but remember the bottom of the batting order was hitting like 200.
Yeah, anywhere between 118 and 213.
Yeah, and now look, I mean, it's just amazing. It's amazing, they won with the batting order at the bottom third. It was not doing anything and broken down pitching staff. And then it all comes together in the World Series.
Got hot and got healthy at the right time.
Yeah. I mean, geez. I mean, that kind of thing never happens in San Diego, ever.
Right. There's a question. Sidebar question. Because today, 5:00 tonight, opening the free agency, Dodgers can go get anybody they wanted. They have to creatively finance it, but they've done that. You want Soto?
I don't think they're going to do that. I mean, because where would you play him? Because you're not just assume Mookie's in right. You do need a center fielder. They got to figure that one out. But they have they still probably are hoping for Outman. And then in left field, I imagine they're going to try to re-sign Teoscar Hernandez. So I don't think there's a spot for Soto.
Well, somebody can be a DH.
But that's probably going to be Shohei, isn't it? When he's not pitching. Is he going to pitch next year?
Yes, that's what they believe.
Yeah. So, I mean, it would be almost ridiculous for them to get Soto. Could you imagine if they put Soto in that lineup? And who's going to bat fifth? They should be like an MVP candidate batting number 5. I mean, that would just be insane.
Okay, we'll see where it goes. Stay with us because we'll be talking free agency now that the window is obviously open. Roy, thanks for joining us on Fans Forum. Next topic. Let's go to John.
Have to eat some crow. I knew the series was going 5 games, but I picked the Yankees. I remember Dave Roberts used to be the Padres bench coach. What could have been? Oh, by the way, the Caps fan will be in America's finest city tomorrow.
John is a former San Diego military guy who follows us religiously on the East Coast. He now lives in D.C. Yankees have to be sick, but I don't understand what happened to Judge. Judge came so out of character chasing pitches because he had reinvented himself at home plate. He did hit, he hit 320 with 58 home runs. And he just did not hit at all in the World Series. And then I think he put so much pressure on himself. He was just going outside the box, swinging at all these breaking balls. And so that was a shocker. Yankee pitching was suspect all along. Cole missed a chunk in the middle of the season because of the shoulder issue. And then he came back and was kind of dominant. Rodon had a really good season. The young guy, Luis Gil, he won 16 games, but again, never having pitched in postseason. Now that's a different experience. I always thought the Yankee bullpen was thin and shaky, and it was thin and shaky. They got banged up and they failed badly. So the Yankees were not a complete baseball team by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, they weren't. The Dodgers were dominant, and then the Yankees imploded in Game 5 of the 3 errors. I mean, I couldn't believe that. There was a moment there when the Yankees were up in 5-0 in the 5th game. And I was thinking, hey, this thing might come back to LA and
they're letting them back in the series.
Yeah, and it could be interesting. But then everything went to hell for the Yankees.
Yeah, I mean, Judge misplaced the fly ball. It sure looked to me he took his eye off the ball as he reached for it. I mean, that was an easy catch. And in the whole Garrett Cole, Anthony Rizzo faux pas on the bounding ball to first base where Cole never got off the mound.
Yeah.
He's standing there looking at Rizzo. Rizzo is not going to beat Mookie Betts to the base. Where's Garrett Cole?
Right.
And then the shortstop misplay to throw to the third baseman, Jazz Chisholm. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Yankees do. If the Yankees lose Soto, then they regress back to the pack.
Soto. It's going to be crazy to see where he ends up. And then we can look back at all these different Soto trades that have been made and how they sort out.
John, thanks for joining us. Have a safe trip. Next question.
Let's go to Willard. He goes, hold up. Astros also won 2 titles and 5 World Series and 7 ALCS before losing to the Tigers.
Houston had a good run, although he would put an asterisk next to that and said they cheated.
Banging on the trash can.
Yeah. But, yeah, Houston has had a good farm system. But the era appears to be over because they let a lot of guys go, and the farm system has not replenished. There is no Altuve. There is no Carlos Correa that's coming out of the farm system, and they've been beset by a lot of injuries to their pitching staff. So Houston had a nice run, but that window seems to have closed.
Yeah, but they've been bringing up a lot of really good young players the last few years, so they're probably just going to reload. Bregman, I don't think is coming back. Do you?
I mean, somebody will overpay, and if they overpay, they'll probably get him. I think he's a really fine player. I think he's an underrated player. I think he's a really complete third baseman.
Yeah, it's funny because he's from Albuquerque, and my son went to UNM, and I was on the baseball team, and Bregman came and visited them. And I have a picture of Bregman with all the New Mexico ball players, and Bregman is like this tall. He's really not that big of a guy because you think of him as hitting bombs and winning big games. And so, he's a talented guy.
Yeah, I think the window in Houston's closed unless some of these young guys. I mean, the last one that they expected a lot of, and then he got hurt, was Kyle Tucker, and he'll bounce back. He'll have a good season next year. But boy, their pitching staff has just been chewed up by injuries. They had 7 guys who were on the DL, virtually their entire starting rotation for different chunks of the season. Well, thank you for joining us from Houston. Next one.
Okay, let's go to Gordon. Hi, Lee. Let's hope that those naysayers who wanted Dave Roberts fired would go away. Not true Dodger fans.
Well, part of the equation was, and we critiqued Dave Roberts about why you're doing this during postseason with the certain pitchers or these pitchers, or you're changing the role of pitchers. But some of that came from that front office. The front office gives him a memo. The analytics guys say, we recommend you do this in certain situations. Who's the first guy out of the bullpen? They get involved in right-hander versus left-hander matchups. So they have a lot of input. Dave Roberts obviously manages the game, but there is direction from above. This time, it worked. Lost in all the conversation was, I made the statement a couple weeks ago when the Dodgers had the bullpen day against the Padres. And I was at my cottage in upstate New York when that was happening. I'm looking at it and I say, you're putting Michael Kopech, your closer, in the 4th inning? Why are you doing that? And you got Evan Phillips in the 5th inning? What the Dodger analytics guys did was they came down and said, bullpen day, in the 3rd inning, we want this guy. So it'll be left-hander versus left-handed bats. In the 4th inning, we want Kopech. Kopech's going to go against all the right-handed power hitters, led by Machado and Tatis. In the 5th inning, we're going to Vessier, the left-hander. Vessier is going to pitch against the Cronenworths of the world. Now, that sounds great in theory, but if the first guy screws up and gets bombed and you got to go yank him out because he lets a big rally occur, now you got problems with everybody supposed to follow him. But they kept getting guys out, and they wound up with 8 shutout innings from the bullpen day, and they were able to match right-handers versus our right-handers, left-handers versus the Padres left-handers, and their analytics guy that given day made the right calls, and players have to do it, have to execute it, and they did. But they won that game, and then that forced the 5th game, and they won that game on 2 home runs and 2 bad pitches by Yu Darvish. Series over.
Good, you can't blame you for that.
No,
game.
not at all. It's baseball.
But I have this vision in my head that there's a meeting that takes place where it's Dave Roberts and his coaching staff, the analytics guys, the GM. Maybe it's at 10 in the morning at Dodger Stadium.
It's at 1 in the afternoon, I believe.
That's when they do that. Okay, so now let's say they have the meeting, they all kind of come together and have a plan. Do all of those front office guys and analytics guys, are they in the stands, or do you think a couple of them are in the dugout or maybe
No.
hanging out in the clubhouse?
No, they're not. I don't think they're downstairs. I think they're up in the owner's box or the GM's box, etc. But they've given them a game plan and you try to follow it. And as long as it's working, fine. Now, sometimes it doesn't work and you have to go in a different direction. They had a bullpen day where they got blown up. And they had Brent Honeywell he went out there through 4 innings and got lit, but the game was gone by that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was gone because of what happened before Honeywell ever got to the mound. I think the bullpen between might have been Evan Phillips and Honeywell gave up a combined 9 runs. That happens. But you have these metrics that say this is the statistic that we have that shows these guys don't hit right-handed versus right-handed. And that's why we're bringing Kopech in the 4th inning. I looked at that and I said, how could you do that? At the end of the day, in the 9th inning, I'm sitting in a bar in upstate New York in the Adirondacks, and bartender's looking at me and said, it worked. It sure did. Players have to make it work.
This is potentially an inflection point. Maybe we're going to start to see some more creativity like this from other teams.
But you got to have the talent to be able to execute.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I mean, how many closers do the Dodgers have on their roster? At least 3, maybe 4.
Right.
Are there 4 closers on other teams' roster outside of the Padres? No, I don't think so.
No.
Okay, thanks for the input, Gord. Next question.
Okay, let's go to Chris. He goes, Roberts had the Dodgers playing rock solid basic baseball. Yes, there were big things, but please notice how well they did the little things. For instance, yes, Rizzo Cole messed up a ground ball, but not mentioned enough is the hustle of Mookie Betts tearing it down the line. Imagine, for instance, Manny, quote, I don't hustle, having hit that ball. Enough said.
Well, I guess there's a shred of truth in that because we have seen Manny not go hard at certain times. But Manny's played really differently the last year and a half, and maybe this has got to do with maturity. Maybe this has got to do with his meetings with Peter Seidler. Maybe it's just got to do that he's grown into being a complete ball player. Speaking of Manny, can you please explain to me how he's not in the final 3 for the Gold Glove and how he doesn't even get recognition? The Gold Gloves were awarded last night. How's that possible? Is nobody paying attention to how he plays third base?
Well, you can maybe make a case this year that he was out for the early part of the year, but I'm shocked that he doesn't win more because it's usually who's the guy that's on the Cardinals? He used to be on the Rockies. Arenado. Yeah. So he's usually the one that always seems to win. I always think it's kind of a grudge on Machado, but he's right. Mookie hustled up the line. And I will say this, Manny will kind of dog it like in a nothing game in the middle of the season. But in the playoffs and when it matters, he hustles and he'll surprise you.
I thought he had a complete season. I thought he had a superstar season. And he was hurt. He had 2 different injuries, and yet for the most part, he stayed in there. And I mean, you could tell early on that he could not throw, and you could tell that maybe he didn't have the power behind his swing. And then when he had was it quad injury or the hip injury? You could tell he just wasn't running right, but he loves to play. He eats up innings. He plays virtually every game. So
I love Manny Machado, man. And I know he gets a lot of crap.
Well, he deserved a lot of crap prior at Dodger Stadium and prior to that in Baltimore.
Yeah. He's grown up. He's a dad now.
Yep.
So everything's changed for him. I'm on board with Manny.
Chris, thanks for being with us.
All right, let's go to T. Will. He goes, Hacksaw, you're up to 6,200 followers on YouTube. Attaboy, Saw. Keep it up.
Hey. What we're trying to do is we're trying to push my Twitter All-Star account to beyond 10,000. So we're stuck at around 9,700, 9,800. So if you've never been on social media or you're on X on Twitter, I want you to follow me. Just do me a favor, will you? We give you all this content for absolute free. We're not charging you. So do me a favor. I mean, if I got 6,200 people following me on YouTube, who are quote subscribers,
they are.
I want those 6,200 to go to social media, to X, type in my handle at Hacksaw1090, hit the follow button. We're trying to push that number over 10,000.
Well, what would really help, if you love Hacksaw and you want to help out Hacksaw, like, follow, share, and subscribe. The share part is really big because like social media platforms like Twitter, the algorithm, the way it works, if someone's sharing content, sometimes that will boost, it gets more favorable ratings. And so if we put enough content out on X, whether your commentary, your polls, or posting the videos, there's plenty of stuff there to forward and share with your friends. So try to get everybody on board.
And by the way, give us a thumbs up or give us a gold star. We could use that too here on YouTube. T. Will, thanks for joining us.
Okay, let's go to Yin. She got a good one here. New York City has announced Aaron Judge will be dropping the ball in Times Square on New Year's Eve.
Oh, that's cruel. That's unfair. Don't sprain your ankle jumping off the Yankee bandwagon. But it is, I mean, it is odd that he'd play so poorly on that one fly ball that was hit right there. And it's really odd that, you know, this guy did so well during the course of the season. And he had a bad start because he was dinged up, but then he just played phenomenal ball, superstar ball, just amazing. He go 3 for 20 in postseason and just looked like a shell of himself. And I just got the sense he was trying way too hard. He was trying to do too many things. Ian, thanks for joining us. Go ahead, John. Next one.
Okay, let's go here to Richard. And Richard said, fans forum, at the end of the day, it was the Padres' emotions that did them in. Their arrogance cost them. They poked the bear, and that's what Dodger fans were counting on.
Padres didn't hit. That's on them. You know, you can say, hey, the Dodgers pitchers dominated, but that batting order with all that talent to go 24 innings in a row without scoring a run and just not be competitive, that's just a shocker. I hate to use the word. Other people have used it, that the Padres choked at the biggest time of the year. You'd have to tell me whether you think they choked or whether the Dodgers just beat them because the Dodgers pitching staff was just blazing red hot.
Well, both are true. I think you can say that. You know, people like to point out, you know, the dancing peacock Tatis, but if you really break it down, the whole Machado flipping the ball to Dave Roberts in the dugout, that was a big nothing. You know, there was nothing there. You know, Roberts clearly spun that to kind of take the pressure off of his guys. And you think about the jerks and Profar fly ball that he caught over the fence, and that was just all in fun. You know, he wasn't like barking at anybody.
Oh, no, he was jumping up and down.
Well, it's entertainment. This is entertainment. And then the funny thing is that when Mookie has a similar situation happen to him at New York, at Yankee Stadium, you know, then everyone's all angry at the fans there. The Dodger fans don't like the Yankee fan interfering with my Mookie, but it's okay if Dodger fan interferes with Profar. So, and then Tatis was just being, you know, he was just a
little over the top,
but he wasn't saying anything bad. He was just giving the funny faces and kind of dancing in right field. If that is not the reason the Padres lost. The reason is they just didn't hit for 24 innings.
It's really interesting. Bill Shaken, a friend of mine who's a columnist, very does some really great creative intellectual columns for the LA Times. He wrote, just hold on to the table, unclench your fist. He wrote, the Dodger rivalry no longer exists with the Giants. The Dodgers rivalry is now with the Padres.
Hey, well, I think that's reality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's what it really is. And the Dodgers rolled both New York teams.
Mm-hmm.
So the Padres were the one big hurdle to clear, and they cleared it.
Okay. We move on. A couple more here before we go to social media.
Okay, let's go to Emmanuel. The Kershaw meme curse still haunts the Padres, and now the Flat Joe curse is haunting the Yankees.
Oh, it's tough. It's really tough. You know, and I understand some of the things. I don't think the Padres should have ever done that scoreboard video thing with Clayton Kershaw crying. I thought that
good.
I thought it was cheap.
Yeah, it's entertainment. Okay. It makes it fun.
You're warped. But yeah, the rivalry is really cool. And now we know for certain that if Profar's on this team next year, it'll be interesting to gauge who gets booed more, Machado, Tatis, or Profar, because they're probably all going to get booed. But that's what the rivalry has become.
It's great. That's what makes sports great, is the rivalries, and right now, Dodger fan, they're having their moment, right? And they're a bunch of dancing peacocks right now. And you got to give it to them, because if I were in their shoes, I'd be doing the same thing. But boy, they thought that you left last week, for your sabbatical. They were certain that you didn't want to face the music.
That had nothing to do with it. I had been assigned a project by my alma mater to come back to speak in the School of Communications. It's been on the books for almost a year. And I wanted to go back there, and I loved it. And I loved going back to where I went to university and matured and grew up. And it was fantastic to be there. So, and this had been planned for the better part of a year that this was going to go. I had no idea the Padres were going to be in the playoffs and do what they did with the Dodgers. And obviously the Dodgers, the World Series. But hey, we put together something really different. So please say thank you. Hope you enjoyed the best of baseball's films and the best movies in pro football and college football, because we'd put these things together for when it came time when I had to be away.
Yeah, it worked out great. So,
I thought it was.
And it was just kind of fun going through all those movies.
Okay, next question.
Okay, let's go to Joey. And he says, this Raider Nation here, will Antonio Pierce get fired by the Raiders, and can they get a quarterback in this draft?
I think we're going to get to the end of the finish line. If this turns out to be just a horrid season for the Silver and Bleak, I think Pierce has to go. And they're going to put their trust in Tom Telesco, and he's going to have to make the right coaching hire. And they face a massive rebuild. I mean, they are so deficient in skill talent now at wide receiver, running back, and have had so many injuries on defense. You can't fix it in one draft, but you can fix it through free agency too. And Telesco is a very conservative general manager. He's not going to do stupid things. So I think Pierce's job is really, really in jeopardy. I mean, he's loud and he talks a good game, but man, they're 2-7 and they're not competitive at all. So I think he's in jeopardy. And when you start throwing your assistant coaches, who you just hired, overboard, that to me is a cop-out. I think you fix it and you stay together, and if it goes down, you all go down together. You don't blame the coordinators. At least that's my opinion.
Las Vegas as a metropolitan area has grown so much, and I wonder if Las Vegas resident guy is really excited about the Raiders, or if they're thinking, oh, we got a team, but they stink, or does it all not matter at all because most of the people in the stadium are from the visiting team?
You checked off all the boxes. I think so. To me, it's still a very strange place to have pro franchises.
No, I think it's good. I mean, it's a good business opportunity, but yeah, the franchise is a mess.
Couple more here. Go ahead.
A couple more. Let's go here to Greg. Lee, what is wrong with USC football? As an alum, I'm seeking answers. Great show.
Well, they lost the quarterback. The quarterback of the future, Dante Moore, wound up going to Oregon. He transferred out. And they gave Morris the job based on the 6-touchdown outing in the Holiday Bowl. But I think the longer this season has gone, Morris is throwing so many interceptions, and it's just not a complete football team right now. I mean, they are USC. They should be able to go get anybody they want from a talent level standpoint. It just doesn't seem that. Their wide receiver core, I thought they were going to have breakout wide receivers. I thought Zachariah Branch was going to be a superstar. Hasn't really happened. So there's something that's just not right at USC football. And for them to get beat as many times as they've gotten beaten, and they're 4-5, and game management's a problem, and turnovers have just become just a nightmare of a problem for Moss, the quarterback. So they got some real problems. Does Lincoln Riley survive this season? Yeah, he probably does, but it can't be many more seasons like this at all.
Everyone thought Lincoln Riley is like one of the greatest football coaches in college football, especially when he was at Oklahoma, and then he gets the big deal to go to USC. I mean, that just must really be awful for an alum, a USC alum. We made this big investment in Lincoln Riley, and it's not working.
Well, he's making a beaucoup amount of money, so they're not going to eat that contract, but he's got to fix this thing because this should not be the way it is at USC. USC, Big Ten. I don't see anybody talking about USC's name in the same sentence with Ohio State or Penn State.
Well, didn't USC just lose to, was it UW over the weekend?
Yeah, they got beat.
So one of their Pac-12 guys, but it's obviously all Big Ten. But yeah, you got to at least beat your Pac-12 guys that moved with you into the Big Ten.
Yeah, especially when UW is in the middle of rebuild.
Yeah.
And we're sub 500.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah. And just a follow up on this one, there was one comment here, and it was from, where was it? And here, this is from Bob. He says UCLA football had the Natty. That was another a championship in LA.
Well, yeah.
What year was that?
Oh my goodness.
I assume this is football. Yeah, football.
Good question. I'm brain locked on that.
Yeah,
one.
I don't even know when that would have been. It would have been a long time ago.
Yeah. Okay, move on here. We got social media all over the place here.
Let's go here to social media.
Are we sure we want to go to social media?
Okay. Well, there's some good stuff in here. There's some people. There's a bunch of dancing peacock Dodger fans too. Okay, let's go here to David talking about the realignment of college football. He says we are headed towards a FBS with just 5 total conferences, and the 12-team playoff bracket will be filled with 11 Power 3 teams and just one Group of 2 champion, the imbalance and lack of parity will doom college football as a national sport.
I totally disagree, because I think the one thing that we have seen now this season alone, with the death of the Pac-12 and all these schools that went to the Big 12 and then obviously to the Big 10 and the transfer of teams into the SEC, we're seeing more vibrant in-season college football matchups that you'd never see before. I mean, just think of Oregon going into Ann Arbor and stomping Michigan. Think about Oregon, Ohio State.
Yeah.
Think about Georgia, Texas. Think about Texas, Michigan. This is a byproduct of the rearrangement of the conferences. So I think there's more big marquee games in season that we'd never, ever see before. I think the ones that are going to suffer, the bowl games, are going to be off the radar. I don't think there's any bowl games that are going to be really important, except the playoff games that wind up being in one of these bowl game scenarios. So, and I think college football's exploded in terms of TV ratings, and we're going to probably see some rematches of in-season matches in the postseason and the playoffs, just because there's going to be 12 teams, and we know who the top 5 or 7 are going to be, and the others will see who gets in. And it's nice to say, okay, a Mountain West Conference team, or maybe an unbeaten Coastal Carolina, whomever, or Liberty could get into the playoffs as that group of 5 entrant, but they're not going to be able to compete against Ohio State or against Michigan or against Oregon. So that's going to be a blowout. But they had to do that to get everybody to sign off the document. We'll give you a chance to beat Coastal Carolina and go to the playoffs, but you might get beat 51-7.
But they let the underdogs from the small conferences in March Madness, and a lot of those turn out to be great victories. Mm-hmm. But I don't think this is going to be a problem really. First of all, I think this is feels a little bit like when the Major League Baseball had the interleague schedule.
Yeah.
Suddenly you have these matchups you've never heard of. Then the other part of this is the bracket for 12 teams is going to be great. And so overall, we can point to some things with college football that we don't like about the portal or about the NIL, but where this thing is heading, I think is good. I think, and even for the lesser bowl games that aren't necessarily part of that bracket, their fans are still going to be excited. They're still going to want to go out to whatever, the Idaho Potato Bowl, and it'll still be on ESPN because it's going to be nonstop football in December.
Okay. So I'm not sure that this thing has been destructive to college football. I hate losing the Pac-12 and what it meant to everybody on the West Coast. Next social media, sound off.
Sound off. Okay, let's go here. Look, some Padre Dodgers talk. This is from Replied TJ. He goes, "Where's the Dodgers congratulation post, LOL?"
I sent one out on X last night.
No, but he's responding to the Padre video about the general manager in denial, AJ Preller.
Oh, okay.
And you hadn't done a piece on the World Series because you were gone last week. So everyone has been chomping at the bit. Hey, where's Hacksaw? How come he isn't talking?
Well, I did put something up on social media last night when I got back.
Yeah.
On X. It's about the Dodgers, and it's about Dave Roberts, and about who they are and what they stand and what they represent. I'm sorry, I can't please everybody every minute of the day. But
well, Dodger fans think that you are working hard 24/7, the hardest man in show business, but dude needs a break sometimes.
Dude had commitments, had to take care of, but I'm back.
Okay, let's go here. Let's talk a little Padres. This is from Sasquatch Tour. The Padres built a team around a guy that doesn't hustle. Brilliant arm at third, but if your message is, I will never be that guy that hustles, what example is that for younger players? When Profar taunts a runner to run and then gives away a triple, that is not fundamental. It's flashy, egocentric. The Padre has all the talent and a toxic culture with poor leadership.
I don't know that I go that far. That's a condemnation of a team that won 93 games and had the Dodgers by the throat and kind of let them get away. Let's not be overly critical all the time. I mean, Jackson Merrill's a hell of a talent. I think you'd agree with me. Darvish is really special. I think that bullpen collectively was pretty good. I thought it was a great season. It ended with a great disappointment by what happened right at the end with the 24 shutout innings. But at the end of the day, they got another, next year to play. And I think this whole team, for the most part, is going to be back intact. And we'll just see if they can take the next step forward. Because after that, it's going to be different. When these guys turn 35 and are still under contract for 5 more years, that's going to be a bit of a problem, because I think there will be budget controls put in place for AJ Preller.
Manny gets a bad rap, okay, because this whole "I'm not Johnny Hustle" thing, he didn't mean that he's a dog and he's going to be a slacker. What he meant is that, remember Eric Owens that played for the Padres?
Yeah.
Mr. Little guy hustling every time, would run out the most routine ball, like 100-yard dash. That's what he was saying. Is like, I'm a pro. It's a long season. Sometimes it's pretty obvious this is a routine grounder to second. So I'm going to save myself.
It was a stupid statement.
It was a stupid statement, but it's stupid to say it because it's ripe to get distorted. Like
Please tell me this. If you had a hole at third base, you would not want that guy to fill that hole at third base?
Oh, any day. I'd sign him over Bregman in a heartbeat.
End of discussion.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, next social media concept.
Okay, here we go to our Era's Joe. Because Hacksaw, we remember KTAR, but before that, we remember the Richfield Coliseum and doing Swenson's commercials on WHLO.
Oh my goodness, this guy must have been deported from Cleveland and Akron. Arizona Joe. Yeah, we did a lot of cool things. Here's the neatest part. I'll just tell this 30-second snippet. So I went back to Ohio for the speaking engagement at my alma mater at the School of Communications. I also went to where I began my my broadcast career. Athens, Ohio. It's not Ohio State. It's Ohio University. It's in Appalachia, right on the Ohio-West Virginia border.
Mm-hmm.
Small town, small college town. Really cool place, beautiful brick buildings and all that. So just north of Athens is a little place called Logan, Ohio. And that's where I started my radio career.
Cool.
And I worked in Logan for 4 years while I was going to school full time. I talked my way into the job, and I wound up becoming the program director of an AM FM station that we flipped and made it into adult music. And we started doing high school sports, and we did local news. And I mean, we took a station that was just drifting out there under new ownership, and we flipped it, and they gave me freedom to do a whole bunch of things. I met a whole bunch of young guys. We hired a couple of young guys. I hired a guy as a sales guy when I was program director at age 22. I hired a sales guy who used to be an insurance salesman, and we became friends. And I said, listen, you know our station, you know what we're doing with high school football and basketball, huge in Southeast Ohio. Huge.
Oh, I bet.
Massillon, Ohio, Massillon Tigers and all that. He knew what we were doing. I said, Raj, if you come join us and help sell what we're doing, you're going to make a lot of money. Roger came, and we divvied up there were 3 cities that we sold advertising in because they're kind of a small regional station. And so I stayed there 4 years and was program director, and I did a ton of things, and the station became successful. Roger made a lot of money. I made a lot of money. And then I left to move to a middle-sized market because I just felt I had to take the next step in my career. Roger wound up becoming sales manager, then general manager. Then he bought the station.
Really?
He bought the stations.
Cool.
He made a lot of money. And then small market Appalachia, things got tougher and tougher economically. He sold the stations, made a ton of money. So anyhow, I went back to see him. And so about 4 of us got together. We all kind of worked together in that era from the late 60s into the early 70s before I went to New York to do hockey. And we sat around and we told old stories. And we told a few lies too, but we had just a great time. So we all come from somewhere, and that's where I came from. And so you're stuck with me.
I love the stories about your career because it's crazy. I mean, what the things that you have done.
Nobody knows that.
No, but you've
not
done
that important to very many people. It's important to me because I walked that road.
It's cool, because it's like you had to work in the minor leagues before you work out to the major leagues,
Sure.
So, but I want to go back to your early times on the radio in Ohio. Was there any of the hacksaw stick that we know now? Was it being used way back then?
No, because I was spinning the hits. I was a disc jockey.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, I was a disc jockey, and then I became program director, and then we became an adult standard station. We played adult music all day from 6 a.m. sign on till 6 p.m. And at 6 p.m. we played the hits, rock and roll for kids.
Okay.
So I started out as the nighttime jock, 6 to 9 p.m. playing the Bee Gees and all that. And then I evolved into so many other things. And I did high school football, which was huge, and high school basketball. And then we did high school baseball and made a lot of money. Station kind of became a regional voice of like 4 or 5 counties because that's who we were because of our signal. So it was that's what I did, and that's what I learned from, and it was just great, and then I went to upstate New York and became a hockey play-by-play guy and got more deeply involved in news talk radio, and that became sports talk, and then to Cleveland, where I did NHL, WHA hockey, and I did sports talk, and then to Phoenix, where I did the Sun Devils and pioneered sports talk, and then here to be the voice of the Chargers and do sports talk like nobody had ever done on the West Coast before. So, but my shtick, it wasn't my shtick when I was in small market Logan, Ohio.
Yeah, I would imagine it's evolved throughout your
Yes.
career. Little things kind of turn into big things.
That's where we are. Let's do one more social media post here.
Okay, let's go here. Did we do this Padre Dodger one? Yeah, we already covered that one. Let's go here. Talk about NFL football movies from Rap Album Depot. He goes, in my opinion, football movies have historically been pretty lousy, much like basketball and soccer movies. I must say, though, that I did enjoy Rudy and North Dallas 40 for what they were, though.
Yeah, and they were on the periphery of ones that we considered. We should do a segment just on the reaction to the movie reviews that we did. But, when you go back and look at the greatest football movies of all time, and again, I pulled names out of the list because We Are Marshall meant a lot to me because I was there and I covered that tragedy, the plane crash tragedy in 1970. But, there've been some good movies. I think there are more baseball movies that have been unbelievably successful, but that may be a byproduct as baseball's been around a lot longer than the National Football League has. So the baseball, when John and I sat down to talk about a list of how we're going to do this, I swear to you, we had 25 to 30 movies and we were only going to do the top 10. I mean, it was complicated to argue back and forth about, well, why do you think this is the best movie and why I thought it was the best movie? So it was kind of a cool topic to do. And I think John can speak for himself. I thought we had a lot of fun sitting here talking about the movies and showing the video clips too.
Yeah, it was cool, and just the baseball movies, I think, are more connected to American culture and American history and the whole kind of Americana vibe that I think that's why they get more play, than the football movies.
Baseball movies and the history of baseball goes back to the early 1900s. The NFL did not become an in thing until the late 1960s. So baseball had a long head start of history than the National Football League. Nobody knows, nobody cares about the Chicago Bears of 1920 or when they actually formed the National Football League at the auto dealership in Canton, Ohio, where they held the exploratory meetings about having his league. So I think there's so much time span to do more great historical movies about Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and all that back in the day in the Black Sox scandal compared to the NFL, which really did not become an entity until the Baltimore Colts, New York Giants championship game that went overtime in 1958. That was kind of the birth of NFL football on TV.
Here's just kind of a crazy question. Consider all of the athletes that are playing today in professional sports. Which ones do you think will have movies made about them?
Oh, my goodness. There'll be documentaries probably made about Ohtani. What a novel situation he is. If Aaron Judge does what Mickey Mantle did over the length of career, then maybe somebody might do something about that. Why? Who do you think merits that type of consideration?
Imagine, if you will, that down the road, the Colorado Buffaloes win a national championship. I think you can make a case for Coach Prime. I mean, that guy has an incredible career. He would be a fun one. Off the top of my head, Kobe would be another. Well, obviously he passed, but there's been so much written about him.
And there have been videos and documentaries about Kobe and his family. So I don't think that'll happen. Coach Prime?
Maybe.
I bet Neon Dion will be at Florida State a year from now.
Yeah, he might.
Last I checked, Seminoles 1-7.
That's his alma mater, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that sounds pretty easy.
Yeah, connect the dots on that sucker.
Okay.
Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed